Daddy, why is she sleeping here? The snow fell softly through the evening air, creating a blanket of white across the city park. Each flake caught the warm glow of the street lamps, dancing in the gentle breeze before settling on the frozen ground. The world seemed peaceful, almost magical, as winter wrapped the city in its quiet embrace. Marcus Thompson adjusted his wool coat and checked his watch. The business meeting had run longer than expected, and he was eager to get home to his 6-year-old daughter, Emma. She would be waiting with her nanny, probably already in her pajamas, ready for their nightly story time. These moments had become precious to him since his wife Sarah had passed away 2 years ago. Every evening routine, every bedtime story, every goodnight kiss carried extra weight now. As he walked through the park toward the parking garage, his footsteps crunched softly in the fresh snow. The familiar path wound past the old wooden benches where couples often sat in warmer weather, past the fountain that now stood silent and frozen. Marcus had taken this route hundreds of times, but tonight something was different. On one of the benches, barely visible beneath the falling snow, he noticed a figure. At first, he thought it might be someone waiting for a friend or perhaps feeding the pigeons. But as he drew closer, his steps slowed. The person wasn't moving. They were lying down, curled up on the cold bench, with only a thin jacket for warmth. Marcus stopped walking entirely. His breath formed small clouds in the frigid air as he studied the scene more carefully. It was a woman, probably in her late 20s, with long blonde hair that had collected snowflakes like tiny diamonds. Her clothes were clean but inadequate for the harsh weather. She was shivering, even in sleep, her body trying to conserve what little warmth it could find. For a moment, Marcus felt frozen himself, not from the cold but from uncertainty. He was a private person by nature, someone who kept to himself and his small family. Getting involved in other people's problems wasn't something he did, but something about the scene before him stirred a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. It was the same protective instinct that had awakened in him when Emma was born, the overwhelming need to keep someone safe. He approached the bench slowly, not wanting to startle the sleeping woman. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Miss, are you all right?" The woman stirred but didn't wake immediately. Marcus tried again, a little louder this time. "Miss, it's getting very cold out here. You can't sleep on this bench tonight." Finally, her eyes opened. They were green, like spring leaves, but filled with confusion and fear. She sat up quickly, pulling her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice hoarse from the cold. "I'll move. I didn't mean to." "No, please don't apologize," Marcus said, sitting down carefully on the other end of the bench. "I'm just concerned about you. It's going to be below freezing tonight. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" The woman looked down at her hands. Not tonight, no. But I'll figure something out. I always do." Marcus studied her face in the lamplight. There was something dignified about her, even in this vulnerable moment. She wasn't asking for help or making excuses. She was simply trying to survive with grace, and that touched something deep in his heart. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Claire," she replied after a moment's hesitation. "Claire Wilson. I'm Marcus Thompson." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Claire, I know this might sound strange, but would you consider coming to my house tonight? Just for warmth and a safe place to sleep. I have a guest room, and my daughter and we have more space than we need." Claire looked at him with surprise and wariness. "That's very kind, but I couldn't impose on your family. And I don't know you. For all I know." "You're right to be cautious," Marcus said quickly. "Here's my business card. You can see my company, my photo. I understand if you'd rather find another option, but Claire." He looked directly into her eyes. "It's going to be dangerous out here tonight. Sometimes we have to trust in the kindness of strangers." Claire studied the business card, then looked back at Marcus's face. Something in his expression, perhaps the genuine concern in his eyes, helped her make the decision. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." The drive to Marcus's house was mostly quiet, with only the sound of the heater running and the gentle swish of windshield wipers clearing away the snow. Claire sat in the passenger seat, still wrapped in her thin jacket, watching the city lights blur past. Marcus glanced at her occasionally, wondering what circumstances had led her to that bench, but he didn't ask. Some stories revealed themselves in their own time. When they arrived at the large house in the suburbs, Claire's eyes widened slightly. It was beautiful, with warm lights glowing in the windows and a wraparound porch that looked like something from a magazine. "You have a lovely home," she said softly. "Thank you," Marcus replied. "It's been in my family for a while. Sometimes it feels too big for just Emma and me, but it's filled with good memories." They walked up the front steps together, and Marcus opened the door to the sound of small footsteps running down the hallway. "Daddy," Emma called out, launching herself into his arms. She was wearing her favorite unicorn pajamas and her hair was damp from her bath. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marcus said, lifting her up for a hug. "I thought you'd be in bed by now." "Mrs. Patterson said I could wait up for 5 more minutes," Emma explained, then noticed Claire standing in the doorway. Her eyes grew curious but not afraid. "Who's that, Daddy?" Marcus set Emma down and knelt to her level. "This is Miss Claire. She needed a safe place to stay tonight because it's very cold outside, so I invited her to use our guest room. Is that okay with you?" Emma looked at Claire thoughtfully, then nodded solemnly. "Mommy always said we should help people when they need it," she said simply. Claire felt tears prick at her eyes at the little girl's matter-of-fact kindness. "Thank you, Emma. That's very sweet of you." Mrs. Patterson, the nanny, appeared in the hallway with a warm smile. After Marcus explained the situation, she immediately began bustling about, gathering extra blankets and preparing the guest room. "I'll make some hot soup," she announced. Nobody should go to bed cold on a night like this. Later, after Emma had been tucked into bed with an extra story about kindness and helping others, Marcus found Claire sitting in the kitchen with a warm bowl of soup and a cup of tea. She had changed into some of his late wife's clothes that Mrs. Patterson had found, and looked more relaxed than she had on the bench. "Feeling better?" he asked, sitting down across from her. "Much better, thank you," Claire replied. "Your daughter is wonderful, and Mrs. Patterson has been so kind. I can't thank you enough for this." They talked quietly for a while, sharing stories without pressing for details that weren't offered. Marcus learned that Claire had been a teacher before a series of unfortunate events had left her without work or housing. Claire learned that Marcus ran a successful construction company but that his real joy came from being Emma's father. The next morning, Emma woke early and padded down to the guest room. She knocked softly on the door and peeked inside to see Claire still sleeping peacefully under the warm blankets. "Daddy," Emma whispered, tugging on Marcus's shirt as he made coffee. "Why is she sleeping here?" Marcus knelt down and pulled his daughter close. "Remember yesterday when you helped Mrs. Patterson make cookies for the neighbors because Mr. Johnson was sick?" Emma nodded. "Well, sometimes grown-ups need help too. Miss Claire needed a warm, safe place to sleep, and we had one to share. That's what families do, they help people when they can." Emma considered this seriously. "Can she stay for pancakes?" Marcus smiled. "I think that would be very nice." When Claire finally woke up, she found the smell of pancakes drifting through the house and the sound of Emma's laughter coming from the kitchen. For the first time in months, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Over breakfast, Marcus made Claire an offer. His company needed someone to help with administrative work and customer service. It wasn't teaching, but it was steady work with good benefits. Claire accepted with tears in her eyes. Months later, as spring began to melt the last of winter's snow, Claire had her own apartment and had become a regular fixture at Sunday dinners with Marcus and Emma. The little girl who had once asked why Claire was sleeping there now asked when she was coming over next. Sometimes, Marcus thought, the most important moments in life came disguised as simple decisions: whether to stop at a park bench, whether to trust a stranger, whether to open your home and heart to someone in need. That snowy night had changed all their lives, proving that kindness, like snowflakes, has a way of accumulating into something beautiful.